All right. Well, as people join, I'll make sure that they are let in, but I'll go ahead and get started. We're going to be going over how to build kind of conference style events, specifically multi-activity events using the ClubExpress tools. Um, I've already gone through and kind of done some of the grunt work for us, and then I'm going to go through the steps of showing you what I've done to create these events. So let's go ahead and I'm going to kind of walk through the slow part first, and then anyone who's still kind of getting settled can uh, kind of go back and watch the recording for the beginning. But as always, when we're going to start working on events, I'm going to go and head over to our control panel. So I'm logged into the Washington DC chapter, which is just our little template site. And I'm going to head over to our control panel. And when we're working on events, we're going to land on the website tab of the control panel and go over to the events page. We already had one session, so we already have one recording of kind of general event creation. So if there's anything I kind of gloss over, just know that the reason I'm glossing over that is one, because we've already covered it, and two, so that we can focus in on the details of hosting and creating these more complex multi-activity events. So specifically, we're going to be looking at a use case today where we've set up an event where we have multiple options during our registration, and then also an option for sponsorship for that same event. So if you're hosting like a large annual or semi-annual conference where you have multiple people signing up for panels and people can sponsor and people can have booths or anything like that, I've kind of made a couple of very large events to encompass as many different configuration options as possible. So I'm going to head over to, again, our website tab, and I'm going to go to website modules and click on events. This is the back end of all of our events controls. And my site's been a little slow today, so we'll see how my internet works out. But here we go. So we can see once we land on this page, once we search for our events, this is going to give us all of our existing events that we've created. If we were starting from fresh on a brand new event, you would hit add right here and then click on event to start creating a new event. But for now, I'm going to take a peek at two events that I've already created. So I've got two very similar events at the top of this list, and I went ahead and put these way out in the future for 2024. And again, this is on a test site, so none of this actually is public. But I've created two events for a reason. You'll notice they take place on the exact same day, but one of them is for our sponsorships, and one of them is for our general registration. So our members who are signing up to attend this conference, or indeed our non-members as well, would use the conference registration. And then those who want to sponsor the event would use the conference sponsorship. Let's go ahead and first, let's take a look at our conference registration. So we're going to go ahead and go over and click on the pencil over here on the right-hand side, and that's going to take us into the back end of that event to take a look at the different configuration options. So once we're actually in this event, again, this is our 2024 conference registration. This is the one that our members are going to sign up for. I'm going to walk through some of the basic configuration. So when you are initially creating an event, the very first page you land on when you start making an event is this basic information page. So this basic information page is going to have an option at the top. When you first start creating an event, you'll notice it's missing for us right now. And that's specifically because we have already made this a multi-activity event. But when you start creating an event, it's going to ask you a question at the top, and it's going to say activities, single or multiple. Let me go back to this events control panel and show you what that button looks like real quick when you create a new event. I'm going to hop over to a new event. So when I start on a brand new event, so that's what this page will look like when you land on it for the first time. And it's going to ask you singular or multiple. Multiple activities. This doesn't mean you are having multiple events, or it doesn't even necessarily mean it has to take place on multiple days. That just means this one larger event is going to have multiple items that you can register for. So when we go and we choose the multiple activity options, once we fill in the rest of our basic info, and again, we've filled in the basic info in our earlier training session. So I'm going to kind of skip over just like the title and when it's taking place, just to get to kind of the actual configuration of multiple activities. Once we save it, it's going to automatically check for us this option down here in this checkbox list that says more than one activity that people can attend or items that people can purchase. So that will give us the option to have kind of little miniature events inside of our events. So that would be our things like our panels or our meals, our merchandise that we want to sell if we're having one large event with multiple pieces to it. So now we'll hop back over to, I'm going to swap back to this tab over here, which is our 2024 conference. And you'll see, as I mentioned, that option is missing. The reason it's missing is once you configure it as a multi-activity event and it has multiple activities, you can't go back to a single activity because it already has multiple activities configured. And once you have those multiple activities, if you were to change back to a single activity event, it would not know what to do with those extra activities that we've created. When you're creating a multiple activity event, the important changes take place on these three panels right here: the who can register panel, or these three panels: the registration and fees panel, the who can register panel, and the activities and items panel. So those are the three that really get changed by enabling it as a multiple activity event. So the first place we're going to see changes is on our registration and fees page. When I click on this one, I'm going to go ahead and click on my pencil to take a look at the configuration and make changes. So there's not a ton of changes, but one change that is pretty significant is to the wait list. On a single activity event, you have the option when you are creating an event to have a wait list that when your event is full, you can add people to a wait list. And then as spaces open up, you can allow people in the wait list in. On a single activity event, you can process a wait list automatically. But on a multiple activity event, because there are multiple activities taking place simultaneously, the automatic system doesn't work for that. So you do have to process your wait list manually, meaning whenever you have a space free up, the people organizing the event should get an automated email letting them know that someone has canceled and now there's an extra seat available. And because we have turned the wait list on, you will get an email saying, hey, there is now room, and you can come into the event and send a waitlist email to someone. So again, that has to be done manually. It's just a couple clicks. It's not too complicated. We'll be talking more about waitlist configuration once we get down to our activities page, but this is just the toggle page where we can turn a waitlist on and off. If we choose not to have a waitlist, that just means once the event fills up, no one else will be able to register. And then as soon as someone cancels, the registration would then open back up and people could continue to register. Using the waitlist just kind of lets people be on a list of first come, first serve, so that, if I'm added to the waitlist, I would have the ability to be first in line whenever a spot opens up. The things we covered in our previous training, waitlist count and waitlist hours, those still work exactly the same. That's how many people can be on the waitlist. And this is how long people have to use that link that they get to fill in that open spot before it becomes available to the public. So if we leave that at 0, then that link will never expire. But if we say, you have 6 hours, once we send that waitlist option to that person, after 6 hours, that spot would then open up to the public. If we set it at 0, then it will never open up to the public. Other than that, the rest of this registration page stays fairly the same. There's not a whole lot of changes between a single and multiple activity event. We're going to go ahead and take a look at a different panel, and we'll be going through the registration process in a little bit to take a look at what all of these configurations that we've done will look like to your users as well. So the other place we're going to see a big change for our registration settings is going to be the who can register page. On a single activity event, the who can register page is where we set the pricing. So this is where we're going to go, and you'll see on a single activity event, normally when you say, members can register, so we've got our member registration set up here, and we've got our guest registration, which is a guest of a member that is not a member. And we've got our non-member registration. So this just means that members can register, non-members can register, and they can also bring guests. You'll notice there's no pricing. On a single activity event, this is the page where you would see the pricing available to you. We don't have that option here because on a multiple activity event, we can actually set individual pricing for different types of people per activity. So this is actually a page where we don't get more complex. We actually get less complex. So right here, we're just choosing who is actually able to attend this event. So we're saying members, non-members, and their guests. And the pricing we will control elsewhere. So that brings us to the page where we're going to spend almost all of our time today, which is the activities and items page. So when we turn on that basic info page, the multiple activity option, it's going to give us this option. It's going to automatically add this panel here that says activities and items. And when we click on this, we'll get this page. This is a little summary of the items I've already made. I'm going to click on the pencil to go in and make changes to this page. And this is what we're going to see on a multiple activity event. We get these little panels, and each of these little panels is an activity that we have going on this event. And so the way I've configured this event, and this is the way I really recommend anyone to set up registration for a multiple activity event, I have built a conference activity, and we'll dig into the specifics of how each of these is configured, but I've built a conference activity, and this is a required activity. Everyone attending our conference is forced to sign up for this option, but there's no price tied to it. The reason I do that is because this is also how I set my capacity. So if I can only have 100 or 500 or 1,000 people, by forcing everyone to sign up for this activity, no matter what other options they choose, that is how I can limit my entire attendance to this event as a whole. Once it fills up, I've set it to activate the waitlist, which will close the event, meaning no one else can sign up for the event at large anyway. And then you'll see a few other options, and this is where I've set my pricing. So I've got my 3-day pass. So this event I have set up to run from Friday through Sunday. And I've got an option for people to sign up for a 3-day pass, which means they'll be allowed to attend the event for all 3 days. And then I've set up 3 different options here as well, which is a Friday pass, a Saturday pass, and a Sunday pass. And those 3 are each configured just to cover 1 day. And that would mean, if I'm wanting to attend the event, but I don't want to attend all 3 days, maybe I can only come on Friday and Saturday. These options would be able to be chosen by the members or by the registrants, and that would let them kind of get a bit of a discount because they're not planning on coming on Sunday, or similarly, if they can only come on Saturday and Sunday, these will be options available to them to check off to say, hey, I want to come on these days, but I don't need the full 3-day pass. Obviously, like a lot of event registrations, buying a 3-day pass would still be cheaper than buying all 3 days individual. And I'll show you where I set that pricing in a second. And then I've done 3 things outside of the daily pass. I set a meal ticket option. And so the way I've set this up is if I'm having, lunch each day of the conference, you can choose to either bring your own lunch, or if you want to buy a meal ticket, I've configured this as an item. And so on this page, if we wanted to create a new activity, you'll notice most of these are set up as activity. And we have the options over here for new activity or new item. An activity would be defined as something that you would attend. So again, like the conference, or you'd attend the conference for 3 days or attend Friday. And then an item is something physical or perishable that you would purchase, or additionally, something that you could purchase multiple of. So because we're having, a 3 days of conference, you might want to buy just 1 meal ticket and you'll bring a lunch on a different day, or you might want to buy 3. And so I've configured this as a multiple purchase option. So you can buy multiple tickets. And whenever you run reports for your event, it'll let you know, hey, like this person bought 2 meal tickets or 3 meal tickets. And then you can hand them, little tear off tickets if you wanted to, however you wanted to manage that. And then the final 2, these are also activities. These are just little panels I set up, just little, jokey panels that are allowing our members to sign up saying, hey, yeah, I want to attend the panels with different speakers, and I can configure each of these to have their own capacity. So if you have like smaller panel rooms at a larger conference where you can only fit, say, 20 or 30 people in it, you may allow 100 people to attend your conference or 1,000 people to attend your conference, but you can set up smaller activities with limited capacity. And once they fill up, it would prevent people from choosing this option, but it wouldn't necessarily prevent people from registering for the event at large. So once one of your panels is full, it doesn't necessarily mean people can't attend the event anymore. It just means that that they aren't able to attend that panel. So now let's go take a look at what the individual activity configuration looks like. Whenever you create a new activity, it's going to land you in that edit page. So when you click on new activity, it's going to be a pretty simple configuration page. It's going to say activity title. What is the name of the activity that you're creating? What is the description of that activity? So this would be, if we were creating another panel, we would say this is a panel about, how to crochet or how to source new contacts or anything like that. And then you could, for the description, you could give, a slightly more detailed we're having a speaker from, Southeast, Wisconsin or something like that to talk about different topics. Then you have the option to set visibility. I pretty much always recommend just saying visible to all registrants. If you set it to administrators and coordinators only, that means only the people running the event would have the availability to mark registration. That is useful occasionally for people who are having events where you want to manually select who is able to attend which events. But again, that is a very rare need. Almost always leave it as visible to all registrants. And then we can set our date and time. As a note, with activities, they can currently only take place on one day. So as we are creating our events, the larger event as a whole can take place across multiple days, but the sub activities may only be able to take place on one day. And so if you wanted to create, for example, our 3-day registration option, I would just put the first day as my date. It doesn't actually have a multiple select day. And that obviously has to fall within the date range of the event that is taking place. And same with the start and finish time. Once you've created an activity, it will add a card on this page for the activity for the name that you gave it. And then you get all of these extra little miniature configuration options. And you'll notice a lot of these options look very similar to the options over here. And that is because each of these activities is effectively a little miniature event within our event at large. So we can set a different location. So if we had a large event with a conference room, but maybe we want to say this is taking, this panel is taking place in, room B1 or something like that, you could actually specify a location within. And you'll see when we click on location, it's going to say this location is the same as the event. And if you just leave that as yes, then there's no delineation for this event taking place somewhere else. But you could say, this activity that we're setting up is actually taking place at a different location. And you can go in and plug in a different physical address or even plug in different Zoom links for that location. So if you are allowing for virtual attendance to your conferences, you could set up different Zoom links for different panels and people can go and hop into different rooms. You can get really, really granular with how you are specifying the attendance for different events within the main. The next thing we have to set up is the registration and fees. And so that's the same as this registration and fees page over here. It's just the specifics for our individual activity. I'm going to use my Friday pass as an example for this one. So for registration and fees, when you click on it, you get fewer options because, again, this is a miniature event within a larger event. We get the options for, is this showing on the activity screen? This is another one that you pretty much always want to leave for yes, unless for some reason you need to remove an event from an activity. You can come in here and set this to no, and all of those other configurations will go away, and the Friday pass would no longer be available. So if for some reason, Friday is actually getting canceled, we can come in here and just turn the Friday pass off if we needed to. But for the most part, you'll always leave that as yes. This is an important option right here. This activity automatically added to a registration. You have 3 options here. You have no, it's optional, meaning when someone is registering, they will get a list of checkboxes for things that they can sign up for. If you choose no, it's optional, that means by default, it is unchecked and they have to choose to check it in order to register for it. You get yes, it is selected, but users can remove it, which means that checkbox would be pre-checked for them. But if they don't actually want to attend that, they could choose to uncheck it. And then the final option here is yes, it's required, meaning you have to attend this option if you're going to attend the event at all. So for example, for my 2024 conference attendance, I have this set up to be yes, it's required. And that means that in order to attend the conference, you have to register for this activity. Now, I've set no price for it. So you'll see further down, will a fee be charged? No. I am just using this as a way to track the total number of registrants because everyone that registers has to choose this option. And so that gives me a hard number to say, it doesn't matter what days they're attending. It doesn't matter if they've bought lunch. It doesn't matter what panels they're attending. If they are attending at all, they will be on the list for this item because I am forcing them to choose this option as registration. We also get to set capacity. This is where we can say for the event, for this specific activity at large, we can control the capacity. So this is my primary registration event. And so I can say, I can have 100 people attend this conference, or maybe if it's a bigger conference, I can say, I can have 1,000 people attend this conference. And it is limited. I can show the capacity and I can show my available slots. And because you have to register for this, once it is full, the event will stop accepting registrations. So because this event is required, because this activity is required and it has a limited capacity, obviously, if there's 1,000 people registered, I can no longer attend this activity. And so I would not be able to complete my registration for the event. One more note about capacity, I think this will answer a question we got in the chat, is the waitlist inclusion option here. So with a multiple activity event, there is technically one waitlist. There isn't an individual waitlist for each activity. There's not a way, at least not at the moment, there's not a way for you to say, oh, I want to be on the waitlist for the panel in case someone cancels and opens up that panel slot. The way the waitlist works is once the waitlist is filled up, the entire event stops accepting registrations, and they would start adding people to the waitlist. So when it comes to waitlist inclusion, I highly, highly recommend you only use the waitlist inclusion yes on an activity that would shut down the entire event if it's full. So for example, once we reach 1,000 people registered for this activity, that would technically mean the event is full. So I'm going to say waitlist inclusion yes, meaning once this fills up, it would start sending people to the waitlist instead of letting people register for the event. And then as people cancel, I can then use my waitlist to then let people continue to register if one of those 1,000 people's cancel. Registration and fees. This is a section where we can say, are we going to charge? Let's see, will the register? So someone asked, will they be required to select another option instead of the $0? Technically, no. So if you are doing an event registration this way, it would technically enable people to sign up for an event and choose no options. But on the registration list, they would show up as having not purchased a day pass. And so if they paid $0, their event registration would say there are no day passes. They didn't sign up for the 3-day. They didn't sign up for Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. And so if they showed up and expected, haha, I tricked the system, I paid $0, obviously that would be A, dishonest on their part, and B, you could very easily answer them with, well, you didn't purchase any day passes. And we'll get to actually one of the ways that I help prevent that from happening in just a minute. If you wanted to have an option, if you're having, say, a 1-day event where you are charging for registration for the event and it doesn't necessarily change depending on other items, you could set a price for this. You could, under registration and fees, you could say, yes, the base registration cost is $50 and then different day passes have a different amount. So you could charge for an item that you do require. It would just kind of limit your ability to charge different amounts for different days and things like that. So for now, I'm going to say I'm not charging for this base registration, and we'll talk about why in just a second. And then attendance tracking. This is just like the attendance tracking for the regular event. It just lets you mark off if someone has attended or not. Keep in mind that members, people that are attending your events, can't mark their own attendance. It has to be marked by someone who is either an event coordinator or an administrator, who would then kind of go down the list and just check off names. It's pretty easy to do, but if you have 1,000 people, sometimes tracking individual attendance can be cumbersome. So we kind of talked about how this is a open registration. This is not this is a required but free registration item. What I usually recommend, and what I've seen a lot of people have a lot of success with, is the very first, the next item at the top. So most people are probably going to purchase the 3-day pass. That is probably our most commonly purchased item. And so I put it at the top. And for our 3-day pass, I also do something different on my registration and fees page. I set this one to be yes, but they can remove it. So by default, when they land on that registration page, the default option is going to have them being charged for their 3-day pass. They can choose to uncheck it and then check the, say, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday options or the meal options. They can uncheck this option, but by default, this will be pre-checked for them to encourage them to notice, oh, I have to choose, do I want the full 3 days, or do I want to swap to just Friday or just Saturday, or only 2 days or something like that. And then just for the rest of my day passes, I don't have a limited capacity because it actually doesn't matter. There's no way I can go over 1,000 on any one day because the limit for my event as a whole is set to 1,000. And then for my registration fees, I am charging. You can choose to have late fees if you wanted to. I'll turn that on and we'll say, starting on, this is a 2024 event, starting on, January 1st, if you haven't registered within the month, we'll set a late fee. So if you're registering too late, the fee will change to a different time, to a different price. So that brings us to our fee pricing. So the next configuration option over for each of our activities is the who can register option. This is going to kind of connect to the who can register we set up before. So again, if we go take a look at this page, we didn't set prices here, but we did set names for our different registration types. So we have our member registration, meaning members can sign up. We have our guest option for members, which means members can bring a guest. We have non-member registration, meaning non-members are able to attend. And then we also have a guest non-member, meaning non-members are also able to attend and are also able to bring guests. So once we've configured these, once we configure those, we are able to reuse these pre-selected options when we are defining who can attend different activities. We're going to use this actually in a much more powerful way when we're talking about our sponsorships page. So under who can register, someone did ask how many times can you change the fee? Just once. There's not a, it gets more expensive every month option. It's either the normal fee or the late fee. So for our base option, you'll see right here, the fees are set to not applicable, but I have all of my options set up here for all of my different membership types to attend. For my other registration types, so my full day, my 3-day pass, when we go to who can register, we have the member registration, guest, non-member, and I set my fees for 3 days. I need to change these because I just added the late fee option. So those need to be updated. But my fees for attending this event are, $80. So it's a $15 membership discount. If you're a member, I'm going to give you a discount. And then if you're a guest or a non-member, I'm going to say I'm going to charge you the full $95 for this event. So that's just an arbitrary number I selected. And then if we wanted to set a late fee, this is kind of an important note. If you're setting a late fee on an event, the date that you set on the registration page is the date that these fees will start to take effect. And it is not an additive fee. So if the late fee is $10, we would not want to put $10 here, because that would actually change the price from $80 to $10. What we would want to put is $90. And so that means after the change date, it would go from an $80 ticket price to a $90 ticket price. And we'd want to go in and click on the pencil to make changes to our pricing. And we'll say this is, 110, 105. So we're charging, a $10 late fee for registering, so late. So there's our price set up for those. That is pretty simple. I will give you a note about who can register. It seems cumbersome to go through and set individual prices for each of these, but you do have the option when you're on the who can register page. So for example, on my Friday pass, for one day, it's going to be $30 per day and then $35 for my non-members, which again, I mentioned before, that totals up to be more than the 3-day pass if you choose all 3 days. So obviously it'd be more economical to choose the 3-day pass. But for each of these options, I don't want to go in and type in $35, $35, $35 for all of my other ones. So I can just do it once. And then once I've done it one time, there is this option. There's this button over here that says copy from another activity. And this will look at your other activities in this event. And so once we've set up Friday, we can actually go copy that from Saturday or copy it from Sunday. And so once we've set it up once, if the pricing is the same for multiple activities, you can save yourself some elbow grease by copying it. So now that we've set the price for Friday, we could go over here to Saturday and we could copy from Friday. And that's actually exactly what I did. So this all just copied exactly the same stuff. I did not type these in manually. I didn't go in and select individual and put in the prices. I just copied from another activity and it pulled all of that information in. Someone did ask, can a member register themselves and another member for an event? There is a guest option when you are on the primary who can register page. So normally we encourage members to register themselves for an event in order to, get discounts, stuff like that. It also encourages your individual members to log into the website. But if you wanted to allow a member to register another member, there is a guest option for that. So you'll see there's different membership guest options, and there is one that says member guest another member. And so you could let a member select another member from the database and, pay for their registration. But, again, traditionally we recommend against that because the more individual you have, the more individual members you have logging into the website more frequently, the more visibility your website's getting and the more people get accustomed to using your website. So, okay, someone asked about the visibility being set to everyone. Visibility doesn't mean availability. It just means who can see that that is an option. So you have two options here. You just have everyone and admins coordinators. If it is set up to be active members, that means only active members can use this option. Visibility just means who can see that that is an option at all. So when we go back, once we're done with configuration, we go back and take a look at this event. That just means you're able to see the pricing as an option and see it as an option available to you. So you want to always, if it's something that is available to be used as a registration type, you want to always leave visibility set to everyone. All right, so let's go back to our activities and items page. Let's wrap up these configuration items. So you do have, we talked in our last event session about questions. Each activity has the ability to have its own questions as well. And that will work the same way a registrant question works, except for the difference is you'll only be asked that question if you sign up for that activity. So if you say, I'm signing up for this, the what is in IGP, you could add a question that says, hey, what's your previous experience with an IGP? And people could fill in an option. But if you're not attending that panel, it may not be important for you to ask that question. Or if you're having like a meal ticket, you could ask people, if you're eating here, you could ask them for their dietary restrictions about their meals so that your, meal team can be aware, like, oh, we need to have, vegetarian options and we need to have, peanut-free options. For your questions. But obviously, if you're not buying a meal ticket, we may not care what your dietary restrictions are because you're not eating here anyway. So you're able to set questions that will only be asked if someone is participating in different activities. And the rest from the rest of that functions the same way our normal event questions work. So you still have to make those questions ahead of time over in the event configuration page. There's a configure option with a dropdown that says configure event questions. You would just create the question. And then on this page, you would simply just say add question. There'll be a little dropdown and whatever questions you have pre-configured will be on this list. So you don't actually build the question on this page. From here on, that's the configuration. These first 5 options, those are the configurations. The registrations, this is a list of registrants. So this is where you can come and click to see who has signed up for our 3-day passes. You can click on this button and get just a list of people that have signed up, who has signed up for our, Sunday pass, who signed up for our panels. It's kind of just a quick at a glance look to see who has signed up for different activities. You also have this copy function. So copy, if I said, hey, now we're actually having a Monday pass, we extended our conference, we can come in here and hit copy, create a Monday pass. And now all of those settings for that other event get copied over. We would still need to come in and update things like our dates, But we would also need to come in. There's a couple things that don't get copied over. Specifically, our questions don't get copied over, and our who can register doesn't get copied. But we can still save ourselves some time by using that copy function for who can register. So you'll see our registration doesn't show up automatically, but I can just say, it's the same price as Friday. So it'll automatically pull in all of our Friday pricing. So I don't have to do that one by one. I don't have to come in here and click each one, set a price, and then hit add. I can just copy from an already existing activity. So now we've got an extra item. So let's talk about our lunch meal ticket item. You'll notice the configuration is slightly different from this. We don't have a location because it's a physical object. You can use things like t-shirts and hats and pins and things like that. If you want to sell merchandise, you can do it using the item option, but as a physical item, it doesn't have a location. It's just a physical item you get with your registration. So for meal tickets, you'll notice the location option is missing, but otherwise the rest of it is set up very similarly. We just have one extra option on the registration and fees page, which is quantities. So this is where we can actually come in and say, oh, you can only buy one of these items per person. Or you can say, because we're having multiple meals, we can say the default is, at least one meal. The minimum, if you are buying a meal ticket, the minimum would be one. And we can say a maximum of, we're only going to have this conference for 3 days. So there will be 3 lunches. So there will be 3 meal tickets. You can buy up to 3 meal tickets. As an item. Now, if you're registering multiple people and bringing guests, you can also mark them for your guests as well. So this doesn't mean 3 per registration. That means 3 per person. So if I'm attending and I'm bringing, my best friend, I can purchase 3 meal tickets and he can purchase 3 meal tickets for a total of 6 and so on and so forth. You can just the same, you can set late fees, you can set capacity. So you can say we only have 500 hats or 300 meals, something like that. You can set a capacity, and once it sells out, it's gone. And then just like with the other activities, you can set a price. Keep in mind when you're selling an item, this is the price of one item. And so if I buy 3, my meals are $7. If I buy 3 of those, that would be $21. If I buy 2, it would be 14. So whatever price you set here would get multiplied by however many they are purchasing. So that's the basic configuration. There's also reports, which are exactly the same as the event reports, just specified to this category. And then you have a delete option. A note about the trash can delete option is you'll notice it go away. Once people are registered for an activity, it can no longer be deleted because now it is tied into members' profiles, and that information is now integral to a part of the database. So it can't be deleted. But if you do need to remove it from availability, you could still go back to your registration and fees page. And always remember there is that show this activity option, and we could turn it off. And so if someone has already registered for it and you need to remove it, you can still go into registration and fees and turn it off. If no one has registered for it yet, so let's say this Monday pass, we're actually not going to have a Monday. Unfortunately, no one has registered for it yet. We can go in and delete it, and it will drop off, and we will lose that panel. So once we're done with configuration, the rest of the event configuration holds true to the previous event that we kind of created in one of these sessions. I want to walk you through what it looks like as a member to register for one of these activities. So if we go back to our previous page, we'll go back to the event. This is the front end of the event. This is what a member sees. So when they go to the event calendar, we'll go to upcoming events. There's my 2024 conference registration. This is how the members will see it if they're choosing to look at it in the list view. And this is the page. I just grabbed a random image to put up there. Here's some information. And then there's my location. And we're also going to get the information about it. And so here's all of those options that I built out. So there's the 24 conference attendance. The capacity is set to 100. I didn't save the 1,000 capacity. And you'll see that there's no fee for this activity. And I can go through the rest of these and look and see what's the price for a 3-day. Oh, I'm a member. As of this date, it will change to $90. You can go through and look at all of the full details for each of these panels, how much do meal tickets cost, so on and so forth. When you are registering, so if I go into the upper right-hand section over here and I click on register now, as an administrator, I'm allowed to technically sign up for someone else. Members would not have this availability. They would only be able to sign themselves up. Same with non-members, but for now, I'm just going to go pick on Michael again. So I'm going to register for Michael. And I'm going to say Michael is bringing a guest. He's going to bring one guest. So it's going to say Michael is signing up for a member registration. Because he's a member, that is the only option available to him because it's locking him into that member registration. My guest is a guest of a member, so it's locking them into the member guest option. It's going to ask me to fill in information about my guest. And so I'll just say this is a test person. I have the option to fill in their title, the company they work for, their email, and their phone address, but I have not set those to be required. You do have the option on your registration and fees page to say, we do require emails for guests or something like that. But whatever you set to be required will have this little red dot next to it. If it doesn't have the red dot, then it is not required. So I do have to fill in a name, but the rest of these are optional. So I just choose not to fill those out. And then this is the page where we get to choose what we are registering for. So this is what all of those activities look like. I get the names of the activities, and I also have these little drop downs to see details. So I can see, what is NIGP anyway? And I can see the details. Oh, it's Phil Collins speaking. I can see what time it's taking place. So it's at 1 to 2 p.m. on Friday. And so if I know I'm not attending on, say, if I'm only going on Saturday and Sunday, I may not want to sign up for this because I can see that it's taking place on Friday. But if I am doing the full 3-day pass option here, then I can sign up for this panel because I will be attending on Friday. So you can click each of these to see details about when and where each of these is taking place. And to sign up for or unsign up for certain things. So if I wanted to sign up for just a Friday and Saturday pass, I would choose to uncheck my 3-day pass, and I can check these two here. You'll notice my 2024 conference attendance is gray. I cannot choose to remove that. Let's see, is there an option? Someone asked if there's an option to for the detail drop down to include a description. Yes, it should include. So there's a details option, and you can type whatever you want in the details option. I may not have been clear about that before. Let me go show you that. I'm going to hop back into my event real quick. And so I'll use where I was talking about Phil Collins before. What is NIGP? In the primary, that first page you set up, you can type whatever details you want. And so that's your description. So you can speaker Phil Collins and, all about NIGP. And so whatever information I put there will show up when I am registering. I'm going to step through that registration real quick one more time. So now we're back on this page. And if I go to my panel, that text that I put there will show up there. So you can fill in pretty much as much detail as you want. The character limit, I think, is it's either 400 or 4,000, but it's pretty significant. You can put quite a bit of details. In fact, I'm almost certain it's 4,000. So you can put, quite a large amount of information for the details of each activity. So you'll notice one of these is different. Our meal ticket item option here. Not only do we check off whether we want to purchase it, it says $7 each. This is where we can control how many of an item, and I can't go beyond 3 because it's limited to 3 for me. And you'll see at the top here, it says activities for Michael ClubExpress. This is just the activity selection for my first person. I get to choose, so I can say, Michael's attending all 3 days. Michael wants 3 meals. Michael is attending both of these panels. And I can go on to my next page. And now it's also going to ask me, what activities am I signing up for my guest? And I can say, oh, my guest is paying a little bit more because he's not a non-member, so he's not getting that membership discount. My guest is actually only coming on Friday and Saturday. And my guest already knows how to yo-yo, so he's not going to attend that, but he will attend the What is an IGP. And my guest, because he's only coming on Friday and Saturday, only needs 2 meals. So then once I continue, it's going to ask me whatever questions I have set up for that event. And I'll say, Michael is vegetarian and my test person has a peanut allergy. And once I complete registration, it's going to land me on this page where it's going to give me a summary of everything I signed up for. So we'll see 2024 conference attendance. Both Michael and test person signed up for that for a total of $0. We could assign a fee to that if we wanted. For the full 3-day pass, only Michael got the 3-day pass. For the Friday and Saturday passes only, that's just for our test person. For our meal ticket, we can see that Michael got 3 meals for $21. Our test person got 2 meals for $14. And then Michael is attending the Learn to Yo-Yo, and both people are attending the What is an IGP, and our total price here is $185. And then if I wanted to complete that registration and continue to the payment page, I can click continue registration and it'll take me to the payment page. It looks like Michael has a credit for some reason, probably from one of our last trainings. But he could submit payment for this right on this page. So that is the kind of the step through of the registration process. There are more steps to register because it is a more complex event. So the more complex you make an event, the more steps there are in the registration because people have to choose different options. So now let's go step through and let's just talk about the differences for our sponsorship event. So I set this up to be 2 different events because my kind of general registration was already complex enough. I actually wanted to separate it. So if I'm signing up as an event sponsor, I want to set up a conference sponsorship event on its own. That way it's not conflating any of the registration for attending the event. So for my 2024 conference sponsorships, it's relatively similar. All of the time that is taking place, the description, the location, all of that is pretty much exactly the same. What I've really changed is who can register, and I've changed my activities. So on the who can register page, these are all for non-members. You can allow members to be conference sponsors if you wanted to use the everyone option to make them available. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and say, only non-members can be sponsors. If you're already a member of the NIGP, it doesn't make sense for you to sponsor this event. But if you want to allow that, you could obviously allow members to sponsor as well. I just chose that arbitrarily for this example. I want to go ahead and change my display sequence. I want my gold sponsor at the top, silver sponsor in the middle, and I'm also allowing sponsors to bring guests. So I've set up 4 options. You can sign up as a gold sponsor, you can sign up as a silver sponsor, you can sign up as a bronze sponsor, and then each of these options are allowed to bring a sponsor guest. So they can bring a +1 just as a free part of being a sponsor. So just like before, I'm not setting prices on this page because I've set this up also as a multiple activity event. And on our activities and items page, I'll go ahead and click into this. You'll see I've set up, very similar to our registration page, a gold sponsorship, a silver sponsorship, and a bronze sponsorship. The main difference with these, on our previous event, I was allowing everyone to register for whatever they wanted. On the sponsorship page, on my who can register, each of these only has 1. So for our gold sponsorship, only our gold sponsors will have this option, and it's a required option. So there's no option for them to uncheck that. The gold sponsor is required to sign up for the gold sponsorship, and it is a $5,000 sponsorship. Same thing goes for our silver sponsorship. Who can register? Only our silver sponsor can register for this one, and it is required, and it is $1,000. And the same thing for bronze. And then I have an option for our booth conference. So if you wanted to allow people to sponsor your event and either show up or not show up, they may also want to purchase a booth. And I am allowing our bronze, our gold, and our silver to purchase a booth space for $250 if they want. And so they can choose to sponsor and they can show up however those sponsorships benefits are, but they can also choose to have a physical space at this event. And then the sponsor. So this is set up as a multiple activity event. So that's why we have this page at all. If it was a single activity event, the activities and items option here would be completely gone. So these are all individual activities. And then I also just set up a little activity for our sponsor guest, which is also a required one. So that means that this is the activity that someone would sign up for if they were a guest. So what that means is everyone, if I'm signing up as a gold sponsor, I do not have the option to sign up as a silver sponsor. If I'm signing up as a silver sponsor, I do not have the option to sign up for the gold sponsor activity. But that also means no matter which one of these I sign up for, I have the option to sign up for a booth. And then if I bring a guest, the only thing the guest can do is sponsor, just attend as a sponsor guest. So let's take a quick look at what that looks like as well during the registration. So if we go back to our conference sponsorship, register now. So I'm building this in. So if a sponsor is allowed to attend the event, I'm building this in as the idea is you are already allowed to, a part of sponsorship is an attendance to the activity. And I would just put that in the details. I have to sign up a non-member because I set it to be non-member. Well, it looks like I messed something up. Let's go find out what I messed up. Sometimes these events get a little tricky. This will be a time for me to let you know about this button down here. So sometimes if an event is having issues where it says like event registration not available at this time, try hitting this reset event button down here in the bottom left. That trips people up, and I've talked to our developers and we're going to have that changed to a refresh event. Reset doesn't mean it undoes anything. It doesn't change any settings. All this does is on the back end of the event, it clears the cache. The CACHE clears the cache of the event so that it'll reset any kind of existing hangups in the system. So resetting it, nothing wrong with that. You can go ahead and reset it a couple times if you want to. It'll just reload the back end of the event and hopefully clear any bugs. Not something you need to use very often, but every once in a while, if you, like me, are going in and making changes really, really quickly and hopping page to page very, very quickly, sometimes the event will kind of hang up a little bit. And my page is still loading. Bear with my internet speeds for just a second. There we go. Let's go back to the event and see if it'll let me register now. Well, for some reason, this just is not working. I will have to play with that. Sorry about that. That is an odd problem I will have to figure out outside of this training. But the registration would look very similar to what we had set up before. The primary difference being if I chose to select the gold sponsorship option, I set the capacity for that at 5. And whenever you select gold sponsorship, the choice of silver sponsorship would not be available to you. So there is, one question we get a lot, we set our other event to have a capacity of 1,000. And if we're allowing, so I've set, we can have 20 bronze sponsors, 10 silver sponsors. So a total of 35 people plus their guests. So potentially 70 people would be added if we were, if we were lucky enough to fill up every single sponsor spot and every single sponsor was bringing a guest. That would count against our total available seats for our other event. That is one of those times where you just kind of have to get creative and maintain your activities. So I would either say build a little bit of headroom into your event. So instead of 1,000, say, 950 to save room for your sponsors. Or if you are so inclined, you could have the option to, as you receive sponsorships for this event, whoever your event contacts are, whoever your event coordinators are going to get notices. They'll get emails saying, hey, we've had someone sign up. And also your treasurer will be probably very happy to get an email that says, hey, someone bought a $5,000 sponsorship. And when you get those notices, it's fairly simple to just go into your other event and just mark the capacity down by 1. So we could go over to our registration page, go back to our primary activity, and we can just go and change our registration and say, oh, we had 5 sponsors sign up. So now we only have, 95 spots, or, 995 spots if we wanted to. However much your capacity is, you could just reduce the availability by that much. I know it's not ideal, but when you're having 2 separate events, or events this complex, there's so many moving parts and there's so many different configurations that it is occasionally difficult for, 2 different registrations to talk to each other. In those cases, it is easiest just to say, hey, we have 10 people coming for our sponsors, and so we'll reduce this by, 10 people. And then once it fills up, just keep track of that manually. Not ideal, but the kind of the best solution I can come up with for that kind of specific use case. And then obviously with our sponsorship registration, if there are like things that they get for sponsoring, you would want to put that in the description. So I'll go back to our sponsor option, go to our activities, and you would want to go over to the edit for our gold sponsorship. And this is where we would put in, includes conference registration plus a guest, or, includes, a shout out, or includes, an ad in our conference magazine or something like that. Whatever they get for being a sponsor, you would want to put what they get for it in the description here. I also wouldn't necessarily say it would be a good idea to put it in your formatted description here as well. So you could, remove this information and say gold sponsor. You could include what information your gold sponsors receive. Someone asked, have I seen standard vendor registrations and sponsorships under the same main event? I have. And I covered that very briefly in our last events training. It is definitely possible. You could instead, these could technically be the same event. We could go into our other event. If my page would load, we could go into our other event and we could add those gold sponsor, silver sponsor. We could add those to our event registration for our main event. So we could add gold sponsor here and silver sponsor. And then under the registration types, we could say there's a registration type for gold sponsor and silver sponsor. And then that would actually also allow our sponsors to sign up for, things like the panels if they wanted to attend. The only reason I say it's beneficial occasionally to separate is if you have large events like this where you're having, 9, 10, 12, 20 activities, occasionally it can start to overwhelm members who are registering, and they're trying to find all of the detailed information about the event. And suddenly they're looking at a page that's, half a mile long and saying, oh, I don't know where to go. I don't know if I'm a sponsor. I don't know if I'm, registering for this panel. Did I click the wrong button? Separating it into this is a nice way for people to know, like, I am a sponsor and these are the options available to me. I am a registrant and these are the options available to me. So it does create a little bit more manual work when you separate them like that, but it also in the long run usually makes it easier for your sponsors and your members to go through their registration process. Is there a place for sponsors' names to be listed? You can actually. So there's 2 ways to do that. So if you wanted to, on the sponsors page, on the sponsors event, we can go down to sponsorships. And there are 2 ways we could handle that. In our registration and fees settings, we can say registrant list visibility. So because this is a separate event, we could say registrant list visibility public. So anyone who signs up for this event, there would be a registrant list that would be public and people could see who else has signed up. In my opinion, that is the lesser of the 2 options. I think the best way, because you're usually only going to have maybe 20, 30 sponsors for most of the events that we see, if that sometimes. As you get sponsors, it's also very easy just to have on your formatted description page, you can just come in here and type them in, list of sponsors, and just list their names out and say, hey, Joseph from Joseph's Pizza chose to sponsor our lunch, and you could put in details, and that also lets you embellish a little bit, so you can put in details about their club, like why they sponsored and what they're getting, and you can free form type whatever you want to type out in your description, and that would also be beneficial because it's going to show up right on this page of the details here. Normally, if you say registrant list visibility, so if we go and turn that on and save it, so if we go visibility public and save this, in order to see the list of registrants, they have to click this button out here. So because I saved that, make that list public, you can see registrants right here. And then this is the list they'll get. And it's a pretty, draconian just list of names. Like, what type of sponsor are you? Oh, I'm a gold sponsor. What's their name? Their name is Jim. It doesn't say where they're from or things like that. If you use the formatted description, you can do things like logos and pictures and GIFs and describe their business. You can get a lot more embellished by using the formatted description section. There's not a way. Yeah, you'd have to manually enter. There's not a way for our system to say, oh, Joseph registered, so it automatically grabs a link to his website. There's not an automatic system for that. You have to kind of put that information in yourself. All right. I know that was a ton of information, and I had to gloss over some of the event basic core information about it. Will that be, no, we probably won't have a way for people to automatically show up their logos and links to websites. That would be a little bit, I know, sorry. It would just be a little bit difficult to code on our end.
Thank you, Devin.
Yeah, my pleasure. I know that was a ton of information. I will have a recording of this for you. I would also recommend, if there are parts of the registration or event creation process that I mentioned but did not go over, they're most likely a part of a single activity event as well. And so I would recommend either checking out the ClubExpress tutorials or training videos that already exist for single activity events, and then applying that to what we just went over here. A lot of the basic event configuration applies to multiple activity events as well. They're kind of like a Venn diagram. So you got to find out where they cross over. As always, if you do have questions, as you're creating an event, kind of get in there and make some fake events and just set their visibility to no, and, see how it works for you. And then if you have questions while you're creating those events, give our support team a call, give us an email. We're around to help with those types of things too. So thank you guys for hanging out with me for an hour while I talked nonstop.
Thank you, Devin. Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.